Elias Vane stood by the baggage carousel at Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. Feeling the exhaustion hit him like a heavy Atlantic wave. At 74, every flight felt like a battle. The 3-hour journey to Atlanta had taken more out of him than he cared to admit. The stale cabin air, the low hum of voices, and the constant hustle of the terminal were far more draining than they used to be. In his younger years, he could fly across the country 3 times a week and still head straight to the office. Now, every trip seemed to drain his very last reserves. The belt moved slowly, spitting out suitcases one by one. Passengers crowded around, grabbing their bags and disappearing into the city lights. Elias waited with a practiced patience. His suitcase was always the last one out. It was a joke he had with himself, the universe's way of making sure he stayed until the very end. This trip had been a complete waste of time. He had flown out to meet potential buyers for his logistics empire, the heads of a massive shipping firm. They had promised serious interest, talked big about synergy and lucrative terms. But when it came time to sign, the excuses started. We need more time to consult the board. We need to audit the offshore accounts. We need to wait for the next quarter's projections. Standard stall tactics from people who had no intention of buying at a fair price. Elias knew what they were doing. They were waiting him out. They were hoping his health would fail so spectacularly that he would agree to any scrap they threw his way. The word about his condition had spread through the high-rise offices of Buckhead and Midtown. Lung cancer. Stage 4. The doctors gave him a year at most. That meant the sharks could wait. They could play on his frailty. Elias grit his teeth. He wasn't ready to fold. If they wouldn't buy, someone else would. The key was to stay steady and not make a desperate move. Finally, his black suitcase with the bright red tag appeared on the belt. Elias stepped forward to reach for it, but suddenly felt a tug on his suit jacket. He turned around. A young girl, maybe 10 years old, stood beside him. She was thin, wearing a faded denim jacket that was 2 sizes too big for her, with short curly hair and eyes as wide and gray as a stormy morning. Her sneakers were worn thin, and she clutched a frayed backpack. Her face was clean, but her clothes told the story of a hard life. "Please, sir, can you help me?" she asked quietly, her hand still holding onto his sleeve. Elias frowned. The airport was full of people looking for a handout, but they usually worked the exits or the subway stations, not the secure baggage claim area. "Let go, kid. I need to get my bag," Elias said. "The black one with the red tag, before it goes around again." "I'll get it," she said quickly. Before he could respond, she darted toward the belt. She was agile, weaving between passengers. She grabbed his heavy suitcase and hauled it onto the floor with a strength that surprised him. She rolled it over to him and stood up straight. "There, your bag, sir." Elias looked at her more closely. Professional beggars didn't help for free. They asked for the money first, or they made a scene. This was different. "Thank you," he said. He reached into his leather wallet and handed her a $20 bill. The girl took the money but didn't leave. She stood there, clutching the bill in her fist, looking at him with a startling intensity. "Do you need more help?" she asked. Elias let out a dry chuckle. "A strange question." "Me? No, I'm fine." "You're tired," she said, her voice steady. "I can see it. And you were traveling for work. You've got the expensive suit, the heavy bag, and documents sticking out of your pocket." Elias was impressed. "You're a sharp one." "So what? Lots of people travel for work." "But not everyone looks this sad," she replied. "You look like things didn't go the way they were supposed to." Elias winced. She was right, but it was none of her business. "Go on, kid. I don't have time for a therapy session." He took his suitcase and headed for the exit. The girl walked right beside him, matching his pace. "Take me with you," she said suddenly. Her voice was soft, but firm. Elias stopped in his tracks and looked at her in disbelief. What? Take me with you. I promise you won't regret it. Elias laughed. The audacity was incredible. Kid, do you even know what you're saying? I can't just take a child. You have parents, guardians. Are you a runaway? I don't have parents, she said calmly. No guardians, no home. I've lived here in the airport for 3 months. Elias narrowed his eyes. Security should have caught you a long time ago. How are you still here? Because I don't beg out loud. I help people with their bags. They give me a few bucks. I buy food at the food court, wash up in the restrooms, and sleep in the quiet spots no one checks. Security sees me, but they don't bother me as long as I don't cause trouble. Elias shook his head. Life was a strange thing, a child surviving in an airport like a ghost. Good for you. You're a survivor. But what does that have to do with me? The girl looked him in the eye. Tomorrow a new head of security starts. I heard the guards talking. He's going to be strict, clearing out everyone who doesn't belong. They'll find me. They'll put me in a state home. I've heard about those places. I'm not going. Why me? There are thousands of people in this airport. Because you're alone, she said. And because you have a big meeting coming up soon. Elias froze. How could you possibly know that? I heard you on the phone. Something about a deal, about buyers, about needing to find serious people instead of time wasters. Elias remembered the call. He had called Marcus Abernathy, his lawyer, while waiting for the plane. And what if I did? What's that to you? The girl took a step closer. A man with a granddaughter looks more trustworthy than a lonely old man. People think if he has family, he's reliable. He's responsible, especially if the deal is important. Elias almost burst out laughing. This girl was thinking like a corporate strategist. That's a hell of a plan, kid. But there are problems. First, I can't just take a kid off the street. It's illegal. Second, you'd need papers. Third, you don't look like my granddaughter. The girl reached into her backpack and pulled out a crumpled birth certificate. I have papers. My name is Maya. I'm 10 years old. You can check. Elias took the document and studied it. It was an original, not a fake. Maya, 10 years old. Her parents had died in a car accident. Her aunt, her only guardian, had passed away a year ago. All right, you have papers. But I still can't do it. The legal risk is too high. Then let's make a deal, Maya insisted. Temporarily, I'll be your granddaughter for the meeting. After that, you can put me somewhere good. Not a state home, but somewhere I'll be okay. Elias looked at her for a long time. She wasn't crying. She wasn't begging. She was pitching. It was the most unexpected thing he had ever encountered. You understand I'm not promising anything? Elias asked. I'm not becoming your guardian. At most, I'll help you through the legal channels. I understand, Maya nodded. Elias thought about it. He had a meeting in 3 days with Julian Pendleton and his team. This was his last chance to sell the business on his terms. If it fell through, he was out of time. And the girl was right. Family values played well in the South. A man with a legacy to protect was a man you could trust. On the other hand, the risks were enormous. But if he did it right, through his lawyer, as a temporary care situation. All right, he said slowly. I'll take you. For now. You'll be my granddaughter for the meeting, and only for the meeting. After that, I'll contact Child Services and help you get settled properly. Legally. Deal, Maya said, her eyes flashing with a spark of hope. I won't let you down. I promise. Then let's go. I need to call my lawyer. They stepped out into the humid Atlanta night. The sky was heavy with clouds. Elias leaned against a pillar, pulled out his phone, and dialed Marcus Abernathy. The lawyer picked up on the third ring. Marcus, I've got a situation. A unique one. I've got a child with me. Elias explained the basics. Marcus remained silent for a long moment. Elias, are you serious? Dead serious. I need to know how to make this legal, at least for a few days. She's coming to the Pendleton meeting with me. Marcus sighed. Elias could hear him shuffling papers. Listen carefully. You can act as a temporary escort if the child is with you voluntarily and isn't reported missing. It's not adoption. It's not guardianship. It's just temporary accompaniment. But everything moving forward has to go through the proper authorities. You can't make long-term decisions for her. Understood? Understood. What if she just comes to the meeting as my granddaughter? Legally, that's a gray area. If no one checks, there's no problem. But if someone suspects foul play and calls the cops, you could be looking at kidnapping charges. So how do we do it? Come to my office in Buckhead tomorrow morning. I'll draft an affidavit of temporary care. We'll state she's with you with her consent and her documents. I'll also notify the authorities of the situation to cover our backs. That should mitigate the risk. Good. We'll be there at 10. One more thing, Elias. Do you know what you're getting into? If this girl is trouble, it could hit you hard, especially given your health. Elias looked at Maya. She was standing there, clutching her backpack, looking at him with desperate hope. I know, but it's a risk worth the taking. All right, see you at 10. Elias tucked his phone away and turned to the girl. Listen to me, Maya. You're coming home with me. Tomorrow we see the lawyer. After that, the meeting. You stay quiet, you smile, and you behave. No stunts. I promise, Maya said firmly. After the meeting, I'll find you a good place. But don't expect a fairy tale. I'm running out of time. Do you understand? The girl nodded. She seemed to understand more than most adults. They hailed a tea. The driver gave them a quick glance. An old man and a young girl. Nothing out of the ordinary. Elias gave his address, and they set off. Maya remained silent, watching the city lights of Atlanta blur past the window. Elias watched her. It was a strange thing, taking in a stranger's child. Why was he doing it? Out of pity? Out of strategy? Or was he just tired of being alone? He thought back to his own childhood. He had grown up in the projects, knowing the sting of hunger and the cold shoulder of the world. He had fought his way out with nothing but grit and a bit of luck. He had built an empire, made a fortune. But for whom? His wife had passed 15 years ago. They never had children. His nephews only called when they needed a check cleared. His friends were mostly gone or moved away. He was a wealthy, dying man in a big, empty house. And here was this girl asking for a hand. Maybe this was his last chance to do something that actually mattered. They arrived at his home, a sprawling, elegant house in a quiet neighborhood. It was beautiful, but it felt like a museum. "This is your room," he said, showing her the guest suite. "The bathroom is through that door. There are towels on the shelf. Get cleaned up. We'll have dinner in a bit." Maya walked into the room and closed the door. Elias went to the kitchen and opened the fridge. There was almost nothing in it. He usually ate out or ordered in. He picked up the phone and ordered from a local bistro. Half an hour later, Maya emerged. She had washed her hair and changed into a clean t-shirt and jeans from her backpack. She looked much better. "Sit down," Elias said as the food arrived. "Let's eat." They sat at the mahogany table. Maya was quiet, looking around the house. "It's a beautiful place," she whispered. "Thank you. I've lived here a long time, alone." Maya nodded. She didn't pry. She ate slowly, carefully, thanking him for every dish. "Were you hungry?" Elias asked. A little. I didn't eat much at the airport. Money was tight. You can eat your fill here. As long as you're here, there's plenty. Maya gave him a small, shy smile. It was the first time she had smiled all evening. After dinner, Elias showed her the rest of the house, letting her know where she could go and what was off limits. Maya listened intently, memorizing every word. Get some sleep, he said. We have a long day tomorrow. We need to be at the lawyer's by 10. Okay, Maya nodded. Good night, grandfather. Elias flinched. She said it so naturally, like it was supposed to be that way. Good night, Maya. The girl went into her room and closed the door. Elias remained alone in the kitchen, staring out at the city lights. He wondered what he had just done. He had taken in a strange child, promised to help her, and dragged her into his business dealings. But it was too late to turn back. He had given his word, and Elias Vane always kept his word. The next morning, they drove to Marcus Abernathy's office. The lawyer greeted them in a refined suite, filled with leather-bound books and heavy oak furniture. Good morning, Marcus said, looking at Maya. So, this is the young lady? Yes. Maya, this is Mr. Abernathy. He's my lawyer. Maya nodded politely. Hello, sir. Marcus smiled. Well, let's get to work. Maya, I have to ask you a few questions. Are you here with Mr. Vane of your own free will? Yes. Do you have any living relatives or guardians who are looking for you? No. They're all gone. Do you understand that this is a temporary arrangement? That Mr. Vane isn't officially your guardian yet? I understand. Marcus nodded and began typing. 20 minutes later, he printed out a document. Here is the affidavit of temporary care. You both sign. I'll send a copy to the local authorities to keep things above board. This legalizes your presence with him for the time being. Elias and Maya signed the papers. Marcus stamped them with a heavy seal. Now you're operating within the law, but remember, this is temporary. Eventually, you'll need to file for official guardianship or place her in a specialized facility. I know, Elias said. 1 month should be enough. They left the office. Maya walked beside him, quiet and focused. Elias could feel her tension. She was afraid that it was all too good to be true. Don't worry, he said as they got into the car. I won't let you down. I promise. Maya looked at him and nodded. The next 2 days were spent preparing for the meeting. Elias bought Maya new clothes, a simple but high-quality navy blue dress, leather shoes, and a light cardigan. He coached her on how to behave, what to say, and what to keep to herself. Maya was a quick study. Remember, you're my granddaughter, Maya. You live with me, you go to a private academy. If they ask anything personal, keep it brief and bring the conversation back to me, understood? Understood. I can do this. Elias believed her. She was smart, far beyond her years. The night before the meeting, he sat in his kitchen, sipping tea. The Pendletons were his last shot. If this failed, he was out of options and out of time. Maya came into the kitchen and sat across from him. Grandfather, are you nervous? He chuckled. A little. Business is a nervous game. Everything will be fine, she said with a strange certainty. I'll help you. Elias looked at her and realized she had already become important to him. In just a few days, she had filled a void he hadn't even realized was there. Maybe this was fate. A chance encounter at an airport that changed everything. The offices of Pendleton and Associates were located on the 42nd floor of a shimmering glass tower in downtown Atlanta. Elias and Maya rode the elevator up, and Maya instinctively pressed closer to him as the doors opened into a vast lobby with white marble floors. Don't be afraid, Elias whispered. Just sit by me and stay quiet. It'll be all right. They were met by a receptionist who led them into a boardroom. The room was expensive and sterile. A long table of dark wood, leather chairs, and abstract art on the walls. The view of the city was breathtaking, but Maya didn't go to the window. She sat obediently in the chair next to Elias. A few minutes later, Julian Pendleton and his wife Claire entered the room. Julian was in his early 40s, tall and athletic, with a perfectly trimmed beard. Claire looked younger, sharp-eyed, and poised. She was the firm's CFO, and Elias knew she was the one who controlled the money. "Mr. Vane, good to see you." Julian shook his hand, then turned his gaze to Maya. "And who is this charming young lady?" "My granddaughter, Maya," Elias said calmly. "I hope you don't mind. She's between school sessions, and I wanted to keep her close. She's very quiet." Claire smiled, though it didn't reach her eyes. "Of course not. How lovely." "How old are you, Maya?" 10, Maya replied, looking her right in the eye. "Are you in school?" "Yes, at a private academy." Claire nodded and turned away. Her interest in the child evaporated. Elias breathed a sigh of relief. Maya was holding up perfectly. Soon, Marcus Abernathy arrived. He greeted everyone, gave Maya a quick, knowing look, and sat across from the Pendletons, opening his briefcase. "Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's get down to it," Julian said, taking his seat at the head of the table. "Elias, we've reviewed the materials. Your company is in excellent shape. The client base is solid. The contracts are long-term. We're ready to acquire the controlling interest on the terms we discussed." Elias nodded. The deal was simple on paper. He was selling 51% of his shares for a sum that would ensure a comfortable life for any heirs he might have, if he had any. He wanted to sell while he could still control the transition. "Let's discuss the details," Elias said. Claire opened her laptop and began reading the terms. Her voice was flat and professional. She went through numbers, timelines, and percentages. It all sounded logical and fair. Elias listened carefully, making notes in his ledger. Marcus made his own notes, asking a few clarifying questions. Maya sat perfectly still. She watched the speakers, then looked at the documents on the table. Elias noticed she was following the conversation, as if she were trying to decode the very essence of the deal. "Now, regarding the asset transfer schedule," Claire continued, "we propose a tiered payment plan. The first installment upon signing, the second in 3 months, and the final payment in 6 months. This is standard for a deal of this magnitude." "That's acceptable," Elias nodded. Julian smiled and pushed a folder toward him. "Excellent. Then let's look at the final draft. Our legal team has vetted everything. It's all in order." Elias opened the folder and began to read. It was a thick document, 30 pages of small text filled with legalese. He read slowly, trying not to miss a thing. 40 minutes passed. Elias felt the fatigue creeping in. The illness was making itself known. His head was spinning. A dull ache throbbed in his temples. He rubbed the bridge of his nose, trying to focus. "Mr. Vane, are you feeling all right?" Claire asked with feigned concern. "Perhaps we should take a break?" "No, I'm fine. Let's continue." He went back to the document. The text was blurring. Damn this disease. The doctors had warned him. Overexertion was dangerous. But this was no time for weakness. "I think we should speed things up," Julian said softly. "Elias, you trust us. We've been working on this for months. We've discussed everything. Why delay? Let's sign today and close the book." Elias looked at him. There was logic in Julian's words. They had been talking up for a long time. Everything seemed agreed upon. Why wait? Marcus Abernathy frowned. "Mr. Pendleton, let's not rush. It's a large contract. We need to be thorough." "We have been thorough," Claire countered. "Our lawyers worked on every clause. There are no hidden traps here. Nevertheless, I'd like to reread a few sections," Marcus insisted. A tense silence filled the room. The Pendletons exchanged a look. Julian tightened his lips but kept a friendly face. "Of course, Marcus. How much time do you need? An hour? Maybe 2? Claire sighed but nodded. Fine. We'll wait outside. They left the boardroom, leaving Elias, Marcus, and Maya alone. Marcus, do you see something? Elias asked. I'm not sure yet, but haste always makes me suspicious. Give me some time. I want to check every line. The lawyer went back to his reading. Maya stood up quietly and went to the window. The city below was a hive of activity, cars, people, endless movement. She stood with her palms against the glass, looking down. Are you bored? Elias asked. The girl turned and shook her head. No, just thinking. About what? About how grown-ups use a lot of words, but they don't always tell the truth. Elias chuckled. You're right. In business, that happens a lot. That's why we have lawyers to find the truth in the documents. Maya returned to her seat and fell silent. Again. Elias watched her. She was a strange child, far too serious for her age. The Pendletons returned an hour and a half later. Claire brought a tray with coffee and cookies. She set it on the table and smiled at Maya. Here you go, honey. You must be hungry. Maya took one cookie and thanked her quietly. Claire sat next to her husband, and they both looked at Marcus. Well, Marcus, did you find any issues? The lawyer slowly closed the folder. There are a few points that need clarification, specifically the clause regarding the transfer of assets in the event of unforeseen circumstances. Julian narrowed his eyes. What exactly bothers you? The wording is too vague. It allows for multiple interpretations. Claire shrugged. That's standard legal practice. We included it to protect both parties. Regardless, I'd like it to be rephrased more clearly, Marcus insisted. The Pendletons exchanged another look, this time with a flash of irritation. Fine, Julian agreed. We can make changes, but it'll take time. We'll have to consult our legal team again. It could take several days. Elias felt the exhaustion hit him like a physical blow. Several days. That meant more waiting, more reviewing. He didn't have the energy for endless negotiations. Let's settle it right now, Elias suggested. Which specific clause is it? Marcus opened the contract and pointed to a paragraph in the middle. Right here, read it carefully. Elias leaned in. The text was dense, overloaded with legal jargon. He read it several times, trying to grasp the meaning. It said that in the event of the seller's death within 600 days of signing, the payment terms would change. Specifically, the remaining payments would enter a different status to be determined by a supplemental agreement. I don't see the problem, Julian said. This protects us from risk. If, God forbid, something happens to Elias, we don't want to be in a situation where heirs start contesting the deal. The logic seemed sound. Elias looked at the text again. Was Marcus just being overly cautious? After all, he wasn't planning on dying in the next 6 months. The doctors gave him a year, maybe more. Marcus, are you sure this is a problem? Elias asked. The lawyer paused. Elias, I can't be sure without a deep analysis, but the wording makes me uneasy. It's too abstract. Claire sighed. Gentlemen, we can argue about wording forever, but the fact is this is a standard clause for deals like this. If you want, we can show you other contracts where similar language is used. Elias felt the thread of the conversation slipping away. His head was thumping. He wanted it to be over. He wanted to go home and lie down. Fine, he said. Let's sign. Marcus, if you think it's necessary, we can add an amendment later. Marcus frowned, but remained silent. Julian smiled with relief and pushed the contract toward Elias. Excellent. Let's begin. Sign here. Initials there. Elias took the pen. His hand was shaking from fatigue. He brought the pen to the paper, but suddenly heard Maya's quiet voice. Grandfather, can I have some water? He looked up. The girl was watching him, her expression calm, but her eyes intense. Of course. Claire, could you? Claire stood up. I'll get it. She left the room. Elias looked back at the contract. The letters were swimming. He blinked hard, trying to focus. Claire returned with a glass of water and handed it to Maya. The girl took a few sips and set it on the table. Thank you. Elias picked up the pen again. He would sign, and it would be done. The deal would be closed. The money would hit the account. He could live out his final days in peace. But his hand wouldn't move. He looked at the paper and felt a strange knot in his stomach. Something inside was screaming, "Stop! Don't rush!" Maya sat quietly beside him, her hands folded in her lap. Her face was a mask, but there was a tension in her eyes. She was waiting for something. Elias put the pen down. "I'm sorry. I need a moment. Let's take 15 minutes. Julian grimaced, but nodded. "Of course. We'll wait outside." The Pendletons left the room. Marcus Abernathy looked at Elias. "Elias, if you have doubts, don't sign. We can move this to tomorrow." "I don't have doubts. I'm just tired." The lawyer nodded and stepped out as well, leaving him alone with Maya. The girl was silent, looking out the window. Elias looked at her. "Maya, what were you trying to say?" She turned around. "They're in a hurry. They're in a very big hurry. Why?" Elias went still. She was right. The Pendletons had been pushing for a quick signature. Why? The deal was good for everyone. What difference did a day or a week make? "I don't know," he admitted. "Maybe they have their reasons." Maya looked at him seriously. "Grandfather, what if you get really sick? What happens to the company?" Elias frowned. "What does that have to do with this?" "Well, you are sick. I heard you talking to the doctor on the phone." He flinched. So she knew. She knew he was out of time. "Maya, that's not your concern." "I'm just thinking," she said, looking down. "If you're gone, who gets the company and the money?" Elias was silent. He hadn't thought about that. Or rather, he had, but he didn't want to admit the truth to himself. If he died in the coming months, his assets would go where? To the state? Or to the Pendletons? According to that specific clause. He grabbed the contract and read the disputed paragraph again. Now, with a clear head, the meaning became chillingly clear. In the event of his death within 180 days, the remaining payments were canceled. The company would pass to the Pendletons in its entirety, for 1/3 of the actual price. The blood drained from his face. They knew. They knew about his illness, and they were banking on him not making it to the end of the term. Elias slowly looked at Maya. The girl was watching him with a frightened look, as if she were afraid she had said the wrong thing. "Did you figure this out yourself?" She nodded. "I listened to what they said. There were a lot of big words, but it seemed like they were waiting for something bad to happen." Elias was stunned. A 10-year-old girl had seen what he had almost missed because he was tired, because he was sick, because he was looking for an easy exit. The door opened. Marcus Abernathy walked in. "Elias, they're waiting. Shall we continue?" Elias looked at him, his voice steady. "Yes, but first, I want to discuss the asset transfer clause again, very thoroughly." The Pendletons returned to the boardroom with visible impatience. Julian took his seat. Claire sat beside him, her laptop open. They were both smiling, but the smiles were tight. "Well, Elias, ready to wrap this up?" Julian asked, rubbing his hands together. Elias nodded and pulled the contract toward him. "Yes. But first, I want to go back to the clause we discussed earlier. The one about unforeseen circumstances." Claire let out a soft sigh. "We've already explained that. It's standard." "Nevertheless, I want the details," Elias insisted. "Marcus, read that clause out loud. Slowly. Marcus took the contract and began to read. His voice was flat, emotionless, but every word was clear. In the event of the seller's death within 180 days of the signing of this agreement, the remaining payments outlined in sections 3 and 4 shall be voided. Assets, rights, and obligations shall transfer to the buyer in full, without further financial obligation. Silence fell over the room. Elias stared at the Pendletons. Julian kept his composure, but Claire looked away, pretending to check something on her screen. "Explain to me," Elias said slowly, "why such a clause is in this contract." Julian shrugged. "Elias, we've been over this. It's risk management. We're investing a lot of money. If something happens to you, we need to be sure the deal doesn't fall apart. But if I die, the assets transfer to you anyway, according to the contract. Why cancel the remaining payments?" Claire looked up. "Because in the event of your death, there could be legal ambiguity. Heirs could come out of the woodwork and start litigation, and we want to avoid that." Marcus Abernathy set the contract on the table. "Ladies and gentlemen, I understand your logic, but this wording allows you to gain full control of the company for a fraction of its value. That is inherently unfair to my client." Claire narrowed her eyes. "Marcus, no one is trying to cheat Elias. We are honest people." "Then why keep the clause?" the lawyer challenged. "If you're honest, remove it." Julian started to sweat. "We can't. That condition was set by our investors. Without it, the deal is off." Elias understood now. The Pendletons weren't the only ones involved. There were people behind them, people who were gambling on his death. "How did you find out about my diagnosis?" Elias asked directly. The room went even quieter. The Pendletons exchanged a sharp look. Julian's face showed a flicker of panic. "We don't know what you're talking about." "Don't lie. You know I'm sick. You know I don't have much time. Why else include a death clause for such a short window?" Claire sat up straight. "Elias, it's just a standard time frame. We didn't know anything about your health." "That is a lie," Elias said coldly. "You knew, and you were counting on me dying before the payments were complete." Julian stood up abruptly. "This accusation is baseless." "We didn't—" He was cut off by Maya's quiet voice. "So if grandfather dies right after the deal, you win?" Everyone turned to the girl. She was sitting in her chair, hands folded, looking at the Pendletons with a calm, almost detached expression. But in that calmness was something piercing. She had asked the question so simply, like she was asking about the weather. Claire was flustered. "Child, this is not your concern. The adults are talking." "I'm just asking," Maya said, not looking away. "If he dies in a month, you get his company for free. Is that true?" Julian went pale. That is not the right way to put it. We are paying money. We've already paid the earnest money." Elias looked at Maya, unable to believe what he was hearing. She had broken the whole scheme down, simple words, no legal jargon. And that's why it hit so hard. Claire stood up. "This is outrageous. Elias, are you allowing a child to interfere in our negotiations?" She asked a question. Elias said calmly. "And I'd like to hear the answer. Is my death profitable for you?" Julian slammed his fist on the table. "No, we don't want you dead. We want a fair deal." "Then remove the clause," Marcus Abernathy said. "Right now." A long pause followed. The Pendletons said nothing. Julian looked out the window. Claire nervously adjusted her hair. Finally, Julian turned back to Elias. "Fine. We can discuss changing the wording, but it will take time. We have to clear it with our investors. We'll have to redraw the papers. How much time? Elias asked. A week, maybe 2, Claire added. Maybe a month. Our investors might not agree. Then the deal is dead. Elias understood. They were giving him a choice: sign on their terms or get nothing. They knew he didn't have time to wait. They knew he was tired and sick. Marcus Abernathy put a hand on Elias's shoulder. Elias, don't rush. Better to walk away than to sign a bad contract. Elias nodded. The lawyer was right. Mr. and Mrs. Pendleton, he said firmly, I refuse to sign the contract as it is. If you want to continue, prepare a version without that clause. When you're ready, call my lawyer. Julian's face turned bright red. Do you have any idea what you're doing? We spent months on this. We spent money on the audit. That's your risk, Elias said coldly. I don't owe you a thing. Claire grabbed her laptop and stood up. You'll regret this. We'll find another firm, and you'll be left with nothing. Perhaps, Elias agreed, but at least I'll have my dignity. As Pendleton stormed out of the boardroom, slamming the door behind them. Marcus Abernathy exhaled and looked at Elias. You made the right call. I know. Thank you, Marcus. The lawyer gathered his papers and stood up. I'll prepare the official rejection. I'll send it for your review tonight. He left, leaving Elias alone with Maya. The girl sat quietly, her head down. Elias walked over and sat beside her. Maya, you saved me from a very big mistake. She looked up. I just asked a question. It seemed weird that they were in such a hurry. You didn't just ask. You saw what I almost missed. If it weren't for you, I would have signed that paper. And in a few months, my company would have been theirs for pennies. Maya blushed. I was afraid you'd be mad, that I said the wrong thing. No, I'm grateful, truly grateful. He put his arm around her shoulders. The girl leaned into him, and he could feel her shaking. From the tension, from the fear, from the fact that for the first time in her life, her voice had mattered. They left the office and took the elevator down. The Atlanta air was cool now, the sky gray. Elias hailed a tea and they headed back to the house. He was silent the whole way, thinking about what had happened. The Pendletons were vultures. They had found out about his illness, likely through a leak or a crooked doctor, and decided to exploit it. They had built a trap and nearly caught him. But Maya, the 10-year-old girl he had picked up at the airport out of a whim of pity, had intervened. She had asked one simple question, and the whole scheme had crumbled. At home, Elias put the kettle on. Maya sat on the sofa. Grandfather, what happens now when... She asked softly. I don't know. I'll find another buyer. Or maybe I won't sell at all. Maybe I'll let my managers run it. Well, what if you don't find anyone? Elias shrugged. Then the company stays mine. I'll figure it out. Maya was silent for a moment, then said, You're very tired today. You should rest. He smiled. You're right. I am tired. But it's a good kind of tired. I didn't do something stupid, thanks to you. The girl gave him a shy smile. I'm glad I could help. Elias finished his tea and went to his room. His body was aching. His head was splitting. But his soul was at peace. He had made the right decision. He hadn't let himself be manipulated. He hadn't handed his life's work to people who wanted to profit from his death. He closed his eyes and drifted off. When he woke up, it was already getting dark outside. Maya was sitting in the armchair with a book. She was reading quietly, not making a sound so she wouldn't wake him. What time is it? Elias asked. 8 in the evening. You slept for 3 hours. He sat up and stretched. The headache was better, but the weakness remained. Are you hungry? Maya nodded. A little. Then let's go get dinner. We can talk about what we do next. They went to a small bistro a short walk away. Elias ordered a light soup for himself and a chicken dinner for Maya. The girl ate with gusto. Maya, I want to talk to you seriously, Elias began once they finished. You helped me today. I promised I would get you settled legally. And I'm going to keep that promise. Maya's eyes went wide. You're not going to leave me? No, but I can't adopt you myself. Do you understand? I don't have much time. If I start the process, I won't finish it. I don't want to leave you in limbo. Maya looked down. I understand. So, I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to find you a guardian. A good, vetted person. I'll set it all up through the courts and pay for your education at a private boarding school. You'll live there, learn and grow. And when you're older, you'll have a trust fund for college and a house of your own. I'll put it all in my will. Maya looked up at him. Her eyes were shimmering with tears, but she didn't let them fall. Why would you do that for me? Elias took her hand. Because you're a smart, kind, and honest girl. You deserve a future. And because I can. I have the money. What good is it if I can't help even one child? Maya squeezed his hand. Thank you, she whispered. Elias nodded. He felt he had made another right decision. Perhaps the most important one of his life. The next day, they went back to Marcus Abernathy, and Elias laid out his plan. The lawyer approved. It's sensible, Marcus said. A legal guardianship is faster than adoption. I'll contact social services, find a suitable candidate, and prepare the trust documents. Everything will be airtight. How long will it take? A couple of weeks for the guardianship. The trust and the will can be done in 3 days. The important thing is to get the paperwork right. Elias nodded. 3 weeks. He could make it 3 weeks. The doctor said he had months. He would make it. Maya lived with him in the house during that time. She helped with the small chores, read books, and watched movies. Elias bought her new clothes, school supplies, everything she needed. The girl was blooming. She was no longer the scared child from the airport. She laughed. She asked questions. She was curious about the world. One evening she asked, Grandfather, are you afraid to die? Elias thought about it. No. I've lived a long life. I've done a lot. I'd like more time, of course, but I'm not afraid. I was afraid, Maya admitted. When my aunt died, I was so scared. I was all alone and I didn't know what to do. Elias hugged her. You're not alone now. Even when I'm gone, you'll have a guardian, a school, a home. You won't be on the street. I promise. Maya pressed against him. I'll always remember you. He smiled. And I'll remember you. The girl who saved me from the vultures with one simple question. They sat like that for a long time, looking out at the city lights. And Elias Vane understood that these weeks were the most important of his life. Because he was giving a future, not to himself, but to the one coming after him. A week after the failed meeting, Elias felt better, not physically, but in spirit. He had made his decisions and was working steadily to build Maya's future. Marcus Abernathy worked fast. 3 days after their talk, he called to say he had found a candidate for guardianship. Her name is Hattie Greer, the lawyer explained. She's 52, a teacher with 30 years of experience, a widow, no children of her own. She used to work in residential care. Now she's at a private school. She has an impeccable reputation. She's already been a guardian for 2 children who are now in college. The state knows her and trusts her. Is she willing? Elias asked. Yes. I met with her yesterday and explained everything. Mrs. Greer is ready to take Maya on. There are conditions, of course. The girl will live at a boarding school during the week, and Mrs. Greer will have her on weekends and holidays. It's the best setup for everyone. Elias considered it. He wanted Maya in a stable environment where she could learn and socialize. A boarding school was perfect. Good, set it up. When can we start the paperwork? We'll gather the documents this week. The background checks and the formal consent should take 10 days, no more. Excellent. What about the trust? Ready. Come by the office and we'll sign. The next day, Elias went to Marcus's office. The lawyer laid out several documents. Here is the will. I've drafted it exactly as you asked. The property on Peachtree Street will transfer to Maya when she turns 18. Until then, it will be held in a trust. There's also a dedicated fund for her education from now through university. The money is in a separate account, accessible only to the guardian for educational and living expenses. Everything is overseen by a trustee. Elias read the text carefully. It was clear and unambiguous. What if I live longer than expected? Can I change it? Of course, at any time. But I suggest we sign now, just in case. Elias nodded and signed. A notary witnessed the signature. It was official. Even if Elias died tomorrow, Maya wouldn't be without a roof over her head. That evening, he told Maya about the plans. They sat in the kitchen, drinking tea. Maya listened without interrupting. So, I'll live at the school? She clarified when he finished. Yes, it's a good school. Private, small classes, great teachers. You'll be able to learn and do what interests you. And on weekends, you'll be with Mrs. Greer. Can I still visit you? Elias smiled. Of course. As long as I am here, you come whenever you want. I'll be happy to see you. Maya nodded. There was a flicker of anxiety in her eyes, but she tried to hide it. Grandfather, if you get really sick, who will be with you? Elias patted her head. Don't worry about me. I have doctors. I have Marcus. I won't be alone. You just live your life. Learn. Grow. Become the woman I know you can be. That's what matters. The following week, they met Hattie Greer. She was a short woman, a bit round, with kind brown eyes and a soothing voice. She came to the house with a homemade cake and a small bouquet for Maya. Hello, Maya, she said, smiling. My name is Hattie. Maya was silent, studying her warily. Elias understood. The girl was afraid that this was just another stranger who would disappear or cause pain. Mrs. Greer didn't rush her. She sat at the table, cut the cake, and poured the tea. I heard you like to read, she said. What kind of books do you like? Maya answered hesitantly. The classics. Maya Angelou, Toni Morrison. Oh, excellent choices. Have you tried any modern young adult fiction? The girl shook her head. Mrs. Greer's eyes lit up. Then I'll bring you a few books. There are some wonderful authors out there. I think you'll love them. Slowly, Maya began to thaw. They talked for over an hour. Mrs. Greer talked about the school Maya would attend, about her previous wards, about how they spent their weekends. She didn't push. She just shared. And Maya listened, slowly relaxing. When Mrs. Greer left, Elias asked, Well, what did you think? Maya thought for a second. I think I like her. She's kind. She's more than kind. She's experienced. She knows how to help. You can trust her. The girl nodded. Elias could see the fear hadn't completely vanished, but there was hope now. The legal process took 2 weeks. Social services vetted Mrs. Greer. They interviewed Maya, checked her history. Elias was also vetted as the benefactor. He understood the bureaucrats had to be sure there was no scam, no exploitation of the child. Marcus Abernathy kept everything under control. He was at every meeting, explaining the legal nuances and ensuring there were no delays. Elias was grateful for his work. Finally, at the end of the 3rd week, the formal approval came through. Hattie Greer was officially Maya's guardian. The papers were signed. It was legal. That same day, Elias and Maya drove to the boarding school. It was located just outside the city, a beautiful campus surrounded by old oaks. The buildings were modern and spacious. There were sports fields, a garden, and a massive library. The head of the school, a refined woman in her 50s, took them through the classrooms and showed them the dormitories. Everything was clean, cozy, and well thought out. The students they passed looked happy and engaged. Maya will be in the 5th grade, the headmistress explained. We'll help her adjust. Our classes are small, and our teachers give every child the attention they need. Maya was silent, taking it all in. Elias could see she liked it, but she was afraid to believe it was for her. After the tour, they went to the office. Elias signed the enrollment and boarding contract. He paid for the first year in advance. When can she start? He asked. As early as Monday, the headmistress replied. We're ready whenever she is. Elias looked at the girl. Maya, are you ready? She nodded. I'm ready. The following week, they brought Maya to the school. Mrs. Greer was there too, making sure the transition was smooth. They helped her unpack in her room, which she shared with another quiet girl named Sarah. Before leaving, Elias hugged Maya. You'll do great. Study hard. Be good. I'll visit every week. Do you promise? Maya looked at him intensely. I promise. For as long as I can. She clung to him, and he could feel her shoulders shaking. She was crying, but silently. Grandfather, thank you for everything. Elias felt like he might cry himself. No need to thank me. You earned this. Now go live and be happy. He drove away, leaving Maya at the school. On the way back, Hattie Greer sat beside him in silence. Then she said softly, You're a good man, Mr. Vane. There aren't many like you. Elias shook his head. I'm just doing what I should have done a long time ago. It's nothing special. For Maya, it's the whole world. You gave her a future. He didn't answer. He just looked at the road and thought about how little time he had left. The doctors had warned him. The disease was moving faster than they had anticipated. Maybe a few months, maybe less. But he had made it. He had gotten Maya settled, secured her future, given her a chance. That evening, Elias sat at home alone, looking out the window. The house felt empty without her. It was strange. She had only lived with him for a few weeks, but he had already grown used to her presence, to the quiet rustle of pages when she read, to her questions, to her smiles. The phone rang. It was Marcus Abernathy. Elias, I wanted to let you know all the paperwork for the girl is complete. The trust is registered, the guardianship is final, the tuition is settled. Everything is in order. Thank you, Marcus. You did a great job. It's my job, but I'm glad I could help. Maya is a good kid. She deserves a better life. Elias hung up and looked out at the city. The lights were twinkling. Life was going on. Somewhere out there, Maya was falling asleep in her new room. Maybe she was scared. Maybe she was crying. But in the morning, she would wake up, go to class, meet new friends, and day by day, she would build her life. And he had done all he could. The rest was in the hands of fate. A month passed. Elias visited the school every Saturday. Maya greeted him with joy, telling him about her classes, her new friends, and the books she was reading. She was changing before his eyes, becoming more confident, calmer, happier. Elias could see his plan was working. Hattie Greer visited regularly too, bringing treats and books, checking on her progress. Maya had grown fond of her, looking forward to their time together. One Saturday, Maya showed him her grades, all A's. Her teachers praised her diligence and her talent. I want to be a teacher, she said. Like Mrs. Greer. I want to help kids. Elias smiled. That's a wonderful goal. You'll be a great teacher. They walked through the campus. and Maya talked about her plans. She wanted to study hard, go to a good university, and work with children. Elias listened and felt a deep sense of pride. The girl who had lived in an airport a few months ago was now dreaming of the future. A real, dignified future. "Grandfather, will you come to my graduation?" Maya asked suddenly. Elias went still. Graduation? He wouldn't live to see that day. "I'll try," he said softly. "But if I can't, know that I'll be proud of you. Always." Maya stopped and looked at him. "Are you very sick?" "Yes." He nodded. There was no point in lying. "Yes. The doctors say I don't have much time." Maya's eyes filled with tears. "I don't want you to die." "No one does. But it's part of life. I've lived a long one, and you're just starting yours. And that's how it should be." Maya hugged him, tight, desperately. Elias stroked her hair, feeling his own eyes dampen. "Promise me one thing," he whispered. "Promise me you'll live a full life? Learn, work, find joy. Don't waste your time on grief. Remember me, but don't stay in the past." "I promise," Maya whispered through her tears. "I promise, grandfather." They stood there for a long time in the school courtyard as the sun began to set. Then Elias walked her back, said his goodbyes, and drove home. On the drive, he thought about how amazing life was. He could have walked right past that girl in the airport. He could have ignored her, refused to help. But he had stopped. He had listened. He had given her a chance. And in the process, he had saved more than just her. He had saved himself from the emptiness of his final days. His life had meaning now, because he was leaving behind more than just money and a business. He was leaving a future for another human being. And that was enough. Elias Vane returned home, lay down in his bed, and closed his eyes. His body was failing. His strength was gone, but his soul was at peace. He had done the right thing. 2.5 years passed. Maya was 13. She was in the 8th grade at the same boarding school where Elias had placed her. She had grown up, become a young woman, confident and bright. Her curly hair was longer now, pulled back in a neat ponytail. Her gray eyes were steady. She sat on a bench in the school garden, reading a history textbook. There was a big test tomorrow. Maya always prepared diligently. She remembered her promise to Elias. She studied hard. She never let him down. Elias had passed away 2 years ago. He died peacefully, in his sleep at home. Up until his final weeks, he had visited her every Saturday. Then it became every 2 weeks, then once a month, until finally, Marcus Abernathy called to say he was gone. Maya had cried for a long time. Hattie Greer had held her, comforted her, but the grief was deep. She had lost the man who saved her, who believed in her when she didn't believe in herself. The funeral had been small. A few business partners, Marcus, Hattie, and Maya. The girl had stood by the grave, holding Hattie's hand, staring at the casket with a hollow look. After the funeral, Marcus had invited them to his office. He laid out the paperwork. "Elias left a will," the lawyer said. "Everything is legally settled. Maya, you have the house. Ownership will transfer to you when you're 18. Until then, it's in trust. There's also the fund for your education. Every expense is covered." Maya listened in silence. Hattie nodded. "Also," Marcus continued, "Elias left a letter for you, on the condition that you read it on your 18th birthday. He handed her a sealed envelope. Maya took it with trembling hands. "Is that all?" she asked quietly. "Yes. He took care of you as much as anyone could. You have a home, an education, and a guardian. He did everything he could." Maya pressed the envelope to her chest and wept. Life went on. Maya studied, lived at the school, and spent her time with Hattie. The woman had become like a mother to her. She looked after her, supported her, and gave her advice. They went to the theater, visited museums, went on long walks. Maya felt loved and protected. In school, she had friends now. She was no longer the lonely ghost from the airport. She was a teenager with ordinary problems and joys. But the memory of Elias lived within her. She thought of him often. He wasn't her grandfather by blood, but he was in every way that mattered. Sometimes Maya and Hattie visited his grave, bringing flowers. Maya would talk to him in her head, telling him about her grades, her plans, and what was happening in her life. She felt like he could hear her, that somewhere out there he was proud. 2 more years passed. Maya was 15, preparing for college applications. Her grades were stellar. Her teachers predicted a brilliant future. She had chosen to study education. She wanted to be a teacher, to help children just as she had been helped. Hattie Greer was so proud of her. They had grown even closer. Maya called her mom now, and it felt right. One day, while sorting through her things, Maya found the envelope Elias had left her. She was supposed to wait until she was 18. She was only 15, but she couldn't wait any longer. She carefully opened the envelope. The handwriting was shaky. Elias had written it when he was very ill. Dear Maya, if you are reading this, it means you have turned 18. You are a woman now. I didn't live to see this day, but I can imagine who you've become. Smart, beautiful, strong. I want you to know that meeting you changed my life. I was a sick old man, tired of the world, waiting for the end. And you showed me that life has meaning, as long as you can help even one person. You saved me from the vultures. You gave me my final years filled with purpose. I am grateful to you for that. Now, you have a house, an education, and a family. This is not a gift. It is an investment. I invested in your future because I believe in you. I believe you will become a good person who brings something beautiful to this world. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to dream. Live a full life. Enjoy every day. Remember me, but don't stay in the past. You deserve happiness, and I am certain you will find it. With love, your grandfather, Elias Vane. Maya folded the letter and wiped her tears. She had broken the rules by reading it early, but she didn't regret it. Those words gave her strength. They reminded her why she was trying so hard, why she was learning, why she was living. She stood up and went to the window. It was a normal autumn day. Leaves were falling. People were rushing about their lives. Life was going on. 3 more years passed. Maya turned 18. She graduated high school and was accepted into a top education program. The ceremony was beautiful. Hattie Greer sat in the audience, wiping away tears of joy. Marcus Abernathy was there too, seeing the girl his client had saved. After the ceremony, they went to the notary's office. It was time to transfer the title of the house. The process was quick. Maya signed the papers and received the deed. The house was hers now, completely. That evening, they went to the house on Peachtree Street. Maya hadn't been there in a long time. It had stood empty, with a cleaning service coming once a month. Maya opened the door with her own key and stepped inside. Everything was just as Elias had left it. His books on the shelves, his armchair by the window, his photos on the walls. Maya walked through the rooms, touching the things, remembering. This was where they had tea in the kitchen when she first arrived. This was where he told her about his life, his business, and the importance of being honest. This was where she read her books while he worked at his desk. Maya understood that this house wasn't just property. It was a symbol. A symbol that one man had believed in her when she was nobody. That he had given her a chance, and she hadn't let him down. 4 more years passed. Maya was 22. She graduated university and took a job as a teacher in a public school in the city. She could have chosen a prestigious private school with a high salary, but she chose a school where the kids came from struggling families, because those were the kids who needed support the most. She taught literature and history. The kids loved her. Maya knew how to explain things simply, how to connect with every student. She remembered herself, the 10-year-old girl in the airport who was afraid of the future, and she tried to give her students what had been given to her, faith and hope. Life went on, and she knew for certain that Elias Vane had not lived in vain, because he hadn't just left behind money or a business. He had left behind a person who was now helping others, and that was the true legacy. Priceless. I'm really glad you're here, and that I could share my story with you. If you liked it, show me by liking the video and subscribing to my channel. Let's see how many of us there are. Write in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is. I'm so curious to know where all you wonderful people are tuning in from. If you want to support me a little extra, you can also send a small donation. I share new life stories for you every single day. And now, 2 of my most popular stories will pop up on the screen so you can choose what to watch next.